we may disagree on this, but I just don't see how you can get 7, 8 or 9 people out, 9 million people out of this country. I think they're staying.
President Trump's going to try, but that's the population of Alaska, North Dakota, South Dakota, and Vermont that would have to completely be cleaned out, rounded up, and deported. It is, like I said, it's an industrial-sized scale problem now, and it's shameful.
That's one of the largest migrations in history.
Donald Trump's Republican Party is trying to move on from holding up a border bill that includes many elements that they've been fighting for to a more palatable aspect of the matter for the GOP. Military involvement.
Right, new this morning, President Donald Trump, the former president, floating an extreme proposal on how to deal with the migrant surge if he is reelected, and it includes militarized mass deportations and migrant detention camps. That's according to the Washington Post, who broke the story. A former Trump administration official says the former president is, quote, obsessed with getting the military involved. His campaign says Trump wants to pull off the biggest deportation operation ever in American history.
They've generated fear around the existence of migrants enough to openly talk about rounding them up by the millions as if these humans are cattle. This is followed up by torpedoing bipartisan legislation to make sure that the soil is fertile for more scare tactics, just so that the former president can use another issue to galvanize support around his desire to utilize the armed services for whatever he wants. It's House Republicans' only goal at this point: work for Donald Trump's campaign by any means necessary, including rejecting government funding altogether.
Every city in our country is overrun by this illegal immigrant crisis caused by Joe Biden. We now have 7.3 million encounters at the southern border. We're on track to have 10 million encounters during one presidential administration. This has never happened in American history, not even close. It's a catastrophe, and I don't care what your politics are. It is a man-made political disaster brought to us by Joe Biden and the Democrat Party. The reality is that the Democrat Party realizes how terrible of a policy this has become, and they're trying to place blame and change the subject. In the House and in Congress overall, look, there is no solution because the Democrats do not want to change. They've wanted this policy for 30 years. Now they got this policy. And so my position and a growing number of Republicans, our position is simply there will be no money until you secure the border. You secure the border, then we'll talk about funding the government and other issues.
They can play the game of trying to destroy normal government procedures with fake outrage over the issue that they've openly admitted to not wanting to do anything about, only for political purposes. So once they grind the government to a halt again and possibly toss out a few more rhinos that want to legislate conservative policy plans, they'll still have fear to lean on when their constituents wonder why everything sucks.
Why were you against the House, against the Senate border deal, the bipartisan border?
Well, they allow 5,000 people a week. Number one, that, but it also made it much better for the opposing side. I don't know if you've heard this, but I came up with this one: migrant crime. There's violent crime, there's migrant crime. We have a new category of crime. It's called migrant crime, and it's going to be worse than any other form of crime.
There really is zero effort to hide their plans. This guy said the bill he told the House to reject made it much better for the opposing side. Now, whether he meant that the bill's objectives somehow favored Democrats or he meant passing anything would take the campaign issue off the table, it's an admission that Trump isn't buying his own BS. But what stood out more was his proud unveiling of a new kind of crime. He sold it like it was a used car.
I came up with this one: migrant crime. There's violent crime, there's migrant crime. We have a new category of crime. It's called migrant crime, and it's going to be worse than any other form of crime.
He's literally selling the propaganda like an infomercial.
Let's take his lie, and just for argument's sake, say, okay, Donald, we'll accept your lie that migrant crime, you believe migrant crime is the worst crime in the world. So what does Donald Trump do? He admits at the same time he's going to allow, quote, migrant crime, which is the worst crime, as he says, to continue for another year. He's going to allow fentanyl to continue to flood across the border for another year. He's going to allow Americans to die because of fentanyl for another year. He's going to allow, what they say, that spies from other countries, Chinese spies from other countries, are coming across the southern border. He's going to allow that for another year. And he admits it, that he's going to allow all this to happen because he says, quote, it's good for the other side. So he's going to kill the bill because he doesn't want James Langford, a conservative Republican, to work with Democrats on a problem that he says is the worst problem in America.